Good morning. How's everybody doing this morning? I want to thank you for tuning in to the Summer Sales Success Series. I'm your host, Jamar Brown. I want to apologize for our slight delay. We had a couple of technical difficulties. As you know, this is live. I'm here in the studio. This is interactive. It's real time. And so we have a lot of moving parts going today. So I want to thank you for being on the program today, and also for those on the East Coast as well. Thank you for being a part of the Sales Success Summer Series. Before we get started, I wanted to once again thank you for your time, because I know that's your most valuable asset. There are so many things you could be doing today, and you have busy schedules and lives, and I know that an individual's time is their most important asset. So I want to thank you for being on the program today. I want to thank you for taking the time out to be part of the program. I want to encourage you to use the dialogue box to ask questions, and we're going to have a great series. Before I dive into what the Sales Success Summer Series is all about, I thought I'd just take a second and share with you a little bit about my background. We have a lot of people on the studio cast today. We have people that I've worked with in the past. We have people that have been to some of my programs and some of my events, people that have purchased my book, What's Your Sales Story. Then we have some individuals that this is their first time having any exposure to to me, Jamar Brown, and my company, The Kaizen Way. So what I wanted to do was kind of give you a brief overview of my background. And one of the reasons why I want to do that, in addition to letting you know who I am, is because I also like the concept of reality-based selling. And I believe that if anyone wants to share information or share advice, I think the best teachers are those that have actually experienced what they're talking about. So I want to let you know what I've experienced, what my background is, and why I think I'm in a position to really share some great information with all of you today. So I am a keynote speaker, an author, and a business coach. I speak on sales, leadership, management, life skills. I've authored 2 books, What's Your Sales Story and You're Ugly, and I have 2 more books coming out later on this year, which we'll talk about later on. And also I'm a business coach. I teach sales skills, management skills, leadership skills, and also one-on-one coaching for individuals. I went to Whittier College. I have a degree in business and in marketing. And I spent the first 17 years of my career kind of honing my sales skills and management skills in the medical device industry as both a pharmaceutical sales rep, but also in the medical device side of the business. And as you can look at the slide there, I was started as a summer intern while at Allergan Pharmaceuticals, and then was a sales rep for the company, went into corporate training for about 3 years, was in marketing for a few years, sales management, and then executive leadership as a VP of sales. And then along the way, won such awards as Salesperson of the Year, Sales Manager of the Year, was the youngest regional sales director and VP of sales at 2 companies. And also I've trained hundreds of individuals from a sales standpoint, but also from a management standpoint. And then a couple of years ago, I founded The Kaizen Way. And the basic philosophy of my organization, which does motivational speaking as well as business coaching, is really how to eliminate what is getting in the way of your success. And what I found throughout my entire experience in business was that oftentimes we as sales professionals or managers or even as corporations, whenever we're struggling, whenever we feel like we need to change something, we oftentimes start adding on top of it. We add more sales training programs, we add more leadership programs, we add more things for our salespeople and our managers to do. And what I realize is that the first step should be, what do we need to eliminate? What is getting in the way of our success? What shouldn't we be thinking, and what shouldn't we be doing? And so my main focus of my company is to help individuals and organizations figure out what is getting in the way of their success. And we're going to talk a lot about that as we go through our studio cast today. And also, as I mentioned, I've authored 2 books, What's Your Sales Story, which is one of the programs as part of the Summer Sales Success Series, which we'll talk about in a second. But the other book, not to go off on a tangent, it's a book called You're Ugly. No, not you, or myself. But it's based on the whole idea of how do we help children and parents deal with the issue of bullying. Not so much physical bullying, but verbal bullying and negativity and gossip. And how do we build confidence and self-esteem in our children to help them not be affected by the issues that happen when you have a verbal bullying situation. And so the book goes into this whole story about that, and it gives parents 7 steps to help them build confidence and self-esteem in their children so that they are not affected by the negative effects of verbal bullying. And so I share all of this about my background, not to say who I am or what I've done, but because I'm passionate about what I've experienced in the course of my career. I'm passionate about the fact that I went from a bottom performing sales professional to #1 in the country. I'm passionate about that I took over a sales team that was ranked last in the nation and went to #1 in the country. And not the fact that those results were achieved, but how they were achieved. And I think I figured out something that could really help change the direction of your sales career, of your sales management career, for those of you that are taking part of the Sales Success Summer Series program. But as I mentioned before, that's my background. But when you signed up for the program, I said something very specific. I said, this is not going to be a didactic lecture where you watch Jamar Brown talk about his theories and concepts the entire studio cast. It's really all about you, all about your story, all about your experiences, and how can we learn from my experiences to help you uncover in your reality what's helping you to become successful and what's getting in the way of your success. So what I like to do is start with a story to help illustrate that, that situation. And so several months ago, my father told me a story about a person he used to work with down at Solar Turbines in San Diego. And he said this individual would bring his lunch to work every day. This is the lunch bag. I stole this from my daughter's lunch cabinet. Bring his lunch to work every single day. And every day he would take out his juice, and this is a Capri Sun. I stole this from my daughter's stash as well. Take out his juice or soda, whatever the case may be. Take out a sandwich, and then he would take a bite of the sandwich, and he would say, man, this sandwich tastes terrible. And every single day he'd take out his juice, take out a sandwich, take a bite of the sandwich, and he would say, man, this sandwich tastes terrible. So after a few days of this happening, and every day the person is doing the exact same thing, my father asked him, he said, look, Rick, if you're so sick and tired of eating the same sandwich every single day, having the same lunch every single day, why don't you ask your wife to pack you something different for lunch? And then Rick looked up to him, at him with a scowl, and he said, listen, I don't have to change anything. I pack my own damn lunch. And so the question is, what is in our lunch bag? And one of the biggest aspects of sales, which is probably the most difficult for us as salespeople because we have such strong passion and such big egos about sales, is to admit that what we are taking into the sales process, our attitudes and our behaviors, may not be conducive to our success. And I'm going to tell you a story about how that really got in the way of my success early on. And when I got that dealt with and got that out of the way of my success, out of my limiting ability to become successful, the entire sales process became more clear and I became very successful. So the question is, what is in your lunch bag? What are the thoughts and behaviors that you are carrying with you every single day? And I want you to think about that as we go through today's session. So a couple of things in terms of how to get the most out of this session. I really encourage you to ask questions. This is your time. You've taken the time out of your day to be part of the studio cast. Ask questions. Use a dialogue box to ask those questions. Share your thoughts and ideas. You can tweet me at Jamar_Brown, Facebook Jamar Brown. You can write me an email at info@thekaizenway.com, and then feel free to call me after the session, 949-371-9077. And there's two more aspects of this that I really want to share with you to help you get the most out of today's session. Number one is have a beginner's mindset. We all have gone through so many sales training programs, and we've been inundated with probing, closing, and all those different techniques of sales. And I'm going to share with you a completely different way to look at sales today. I'm going to have you, for a second, suspend your thoughts and ideas about the technical aspects of sales, the sales process, introduction, identifying needs, benefit closing, agreement, and that type of thing. And look at how stories can really affect your ability to be successful at sales. So have that beginner's mindset to learn something new. And the second thing is to enjoy the process. This should be a fun experience. Anytime I get the chance to take some time out of my day to read a good book, to attend a seminar, to talk to people that have been successful, I know that that's going to help me in my journey to continue my success. And so enjoy the process, have fun. I'm going to tell some jokes a little bit with all of you today, and just really enjoy the process. So what is the Sales Success Summer Series all about? It's really a 3-part program that's going to happen every Thursday for the next 3 weeks. Today's session is the intro program, and I thought what I would do is provide a free session so that you can get some exposure to what the program is all about, what the series is all about, before you sign up and pay your money and then take part in the other sessions. So that's really the idea today, is what is the Sales Success Summer Series all about? So every Thursday for the next 3 weeks from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and the cost for each session is going to be $39. We're going to talk about what you're going to get for that $39. But the first session next week on July 31st is What's Your Sales Story? And it's based on the book that I wrote by the same title, What's Your Sales Story? And it's all about how to understand and uncover the power of your story to unleash your potential as a sales professional. So keep that in mind. That's the very first session. And I'm going to take some time later on in the studio cast to really dive into these sessions in a bit more detail. But that's the first session, that's Thursday. The session after that is called Selling in Color, and that's going to be August 7th. And really the idea behind that program is how to achieve top sales results by focusing on personality types. And most programs teach about customer personality types, but the issue with those programs is that they don't really take the time to help the salesperson, him or herself, to understand how their own personality is either helping or hurting their success as a sales professional. So this program focuses on not just the customer, but also your own personality type. And that's going to be August 7th. And the last program in the series is the Kaizen Way of Sales Excellence. That's August 14th. And this is really a proven method for achieving success and record-breaking sales. And it's based on two things: a philosophy around selling and an actual sales process that really breaks the mold from the traditional technical selling process that we've all been exposed to. And so as part of signing up for any one or all three of these sessions, and I encourage you to sign up for all three, you will each receive a free copy of my book, What's Your Sales Story? And you will also receive a 20-minute strategy session to talk with me about your sales challenges or your management challenges or anything you want to talk about from a business perspective. So that's what the Sales Success Summer Series is all about. And here's how you can sign up for the series. You can log on to studiocastpros.com and click on upcoming events. You'll see all the series there. I'll email you invitations. You can call me directly, 949-371-9077. And once again, you'll receive 3 hours of personalized training like this in this format, a free copy of my book, What's Your Sales Story, and also a free 20-minute strategy session. So I encourage all of you to sign up for those programs. So with that said, that's enough about me and the programs. Let's talk about you for a second. And the first question that I ask people that I work with, whether they be individuals or companies, is, are you happy with your current sales results? Are you happy with your current sales results? And it seems like a pretty basic question. And the reason why I start with that question is because if you're happy with your sales results and you think that everything is perfect and you're selling as much as you want to sell and your career is incredible, then there's really no need to take part in the series. However, if you say, you know what, my sales are okay, they could be better, or if you say, I used to be very successful, but over the last couple of years, I don't know what's happened. I don't know if it's the economy, I don't know if it's the customers are different, but I'm not achieving the same level of success that I used to have. Or if you say, you know what, I'm new to sales, or I've been in sales for a couple of years, and I haven't quite figured out how to be successful, then this series is for you. And there's usually two sides of the extreme of this idea of being happy with your sales results. And there's something called the ego. And I've been on both sides of this, of the extreme. And on one hand, from a ego standpoint in terms of sales, when you're struggling like I was, and I'll talk to you about how I nearly got fired for poor sales performance, but when you're struggling at the end of that spectrum, when you're not happy with your sales results, there's a tendency for the ego to tell you it's somebody else's fault. My company doesn't have the right compensation plan. My customers don't understand the way I sell to them. The competition's prices are lower, or the prices are better. Our products aren't as good. And there's a whole host of things that the ego will tell you about sales when you're struggling. And I recall a story. I was at a national sales meeting, and there was an individual who had been on stage as a leadership council winner, top 20% the year before, and then the very next year was struggling. The sales results were in the bottom half of the nation. And I recall, walking up to a table where this person was with some other people, and they were talking. And then I walked up, and this person said, "Oh no, here comes Mr. Positive," because I was kind of known as Mr. Positive at the company. And I said, "Well, what are you guys talking about?" And she said, "Well, you don't want to hear this because I'm talking about what's wrong with the products and what's wrong with the company." I said, "Well, tell me, what do you think's wrong?" And this person went on to say, "Well, our products aren't as good as the competition, and our pricing isn't as good as the competition," and basically giving all these excuses as to why the sales results weren't where they had been a year ago. And I thought to myself, what has changed in a year? The products were exactly the same. The competition didn't release any new products. Our products were at least as good as the competition. So the only thing that changed year over year was the person's attitude, and something was getting in the way of this person's success. And the ego kicked in by saying it's somebody else's fault, even though this person had been successful in the exact same territory with the exact same products, with the exact same competition a year earlier. You may find yourself on that end of the spectrum. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, when you do achieve a certain level of success, and you do win an award for Leadership Council or President's Club or whatever the case may be, or you do win Salesperson of the Year like I did several years ago, there's a tendency for the ego to say, now you can coast, you can relax. You don't have to do what you used to do because you've made it, you've arrived. And what happens in that scenario is that you stop doing the things that help you to become successful in the first place. So you go back to your old habits and your old ways of doing things, and guess what? You start to struggle. So the question for all of you on this studio cast today is, you're probably somewhere between those two extremes, right? Either having some troubles with sales, or you're successful and you're kind of experiencing a softness in your sales results. So if you're anywhere between those extremes or at either end of the spectrum, this program is ideally suited for you. So let me tell you a story to kind of illustrate the point even further. And the story is about a team that I manage called Team Kaizen. I'll tell you what Kaizen means in a second. But let me give you a case study to help you really dive into what we're saying today. And once again, the way that I sort of do my programs is not about, let me get up and tell you the 10 ways of closing or the 50 ways of handling objections. 9 out of 10 programs do that. For me, I want to talk to you about real world scenarios and examples so that you can relate to those stories, see yourself in those stories, and uncover, hey, what part of that affects me? What part of that speaks to me as an individual to start to develop your own sort of individualized sales training plan? So, years ago, I was promoted to a sales manager, first time managing individuals. I had been a salesperson, I had been in training, I had been in marketing, so I did have some experience, but I had never managed anyone before. So I take on this sales team. And here's what was happening with the sales team. They were ranked 21 out of 22 in the nation, obviously not doing very well. Only one person out of 9 individuals was in the top 50% of sales results. Just imagine that. Only one person in the top 50, and that person was ranked 44. There were significant issues with the previous manager. Now, I'm not going to get into he said, she said, but obviously when people are struggling, you start to point the finger and that type of thing. So there was issues with the previous manager. No one was being considered for a promotion. As we all know, part of being promoted is being successful in your current position. If you're not successful in your current position, it's difficult to get promoted. And then team and individual morale was low. And I can imagine, if you're really honest with yourself and you're looking at your sales results and you're not doing that well, or you used to be successful, but the numbers have gotten soft, your morale is probably low and you're probably struggling with some internal challenges, okay? So this led to a number of things, such as infighting within the group, negativity and gossip ran rampant, and then I walked in as a brand new manager with no previous sales experience. So that's where we were. However, my vision for the team was this: to be the #1 team in the nation and to have everyone in the top 20% in sales results. So can you imagine we're at the bottom, right? And my vision is for us to be the #1 team. And I knew that I had a system that would help them do that because I had experienced that in my own sales process. So let me give you the scenario. For me, walking into this room as a first-time manager, the first time meeting with this team that had never had any experience with me, and this was the very first slide I put on the screen before I said anything. I said, this team will be the #1 team in the nation. And there was a lot of blank stares and scowls because they're thinking, well, we're at the bottom. We're not doing well. We're in California. It's a tough marketplace. So they're thinking all these things. And I just looked around the room like I'm doing right now. Then I put up the second slide, and it had the exact same information. And it said, this team will be the #1 team in the nation. And I looked around and was silent. And then one person, raised her hand, and she said, Jamar, I like the fact that you're positive, you have all these lofty goals, but we're at the bottom of the rankings. No one's being successful. We have significant issues in the California marketplace. There's issues with the compensation plan. It's not fair. You're a new manager. How do you expect us to be #1? And I looked at her and I said, the slide reads, this team will be #1. It doesn't say everybody will be on the team when we get there. Now, before we think that I'm this harsh manager, let me explain why I said that. What I explained to the team was our current thoughts and ideas are producing these results. And if you're watching this call, your current thoughts and ideas are producing your current results. And I said, if you're happy with being at the bottom of the rankings, if you're happy with not being successful, if you're happy with not being considered for a promotion, if you're happy with not making money, if you're happy with not being able to take better vacations or to send your children to college, or not to college, but to private school and things like that because you're not generating enough sales revenue, then this is not the team for you. However, if you want to learn how to align your thoughts and your behaviors with a successful salesperson, with a successful team, this is for you. And the reason why I said some people might not be on the team when we get there is a simple idea. And that is that some people are not going to be willing to do what it takes to get there. And I would imagine that if you're on the studio cast today, you're saying, I'm willing to do what it takes to reach my potential as a sales professional, or else you probably wouldn't have logged on to this webinar. So with that said, let's talk about something called the gap. And the gap is, just like with the team, we were at the bottom, but we had visions of being #1, right? And that's called the gap. And the gap in your sales experience is where you currently are today versus where you'd like to be in the future, right? Your idea of success. When I first became a sales rep, I was a first-time salesperson in a territory that was ranked at the bottom of the rankings, but I wanted to be salesperson of the year. There was a major gap. And your mindsets and your behaviors either help you get closer to what you're trying to achieve or take you further away from it. And the reason why this program is not me telling you exactly what to do is because everyone's reality is different. What got in the way of my success may not be what's affecting you. What made me successful with my own character, my own idea, my own personality is going to be totally different for you. And so what I want to do is tell you some stories and give you some examples to help you uncover what is your story. How can you break the mold in terms of your own success progression to achieve your potential? So here's the reality of our current situation, right? And this is an equation I really want you to think about. Your past thoughts about sales and your past behaviors, the things that you actively did, equal your current results, right? So your past thoughts plus your past behaviors equal your current results. And there's something that I want to share with you, and it is all about what we have been taught about the sales process. Because when we go through sales training programs and we go through information and read books, we develop sort of a script around our idea about sales. And it's all sort of in this book, for example. And we have all these thoughts and ideas. And whenever we encounter a new sales situation, we kind of look at what we've done in the past and react to that in general, okay? So what the Sales Success Summer Series is going to ask you to do is to recognize that in your own experience and to do this. That is to understand that in order to be successful in the future or to continue to be successful, it's going to require this. Our current thoughts plus our current behaviors will equal our future results. So what we think today and what we do today will equal our future results. So how do we align our thought process and our behaviors with what we're trying to achieve in the future, and how do we commit ourselves to that process. And that's what I'm going to share with you a little bit today on this introductory program, but we're really going to dive into it over the next 3 Thursdays with the Sales Success Summer Series programs, which I really want you to sign up for. So the idea is to have this beginner's mindset. So what are the current thoughts and what are the current behaviors we need to have in order to be successful at sales? And I share those with everyone because, there really are no guarantees in life, right? The idea is to put yourself in the best position possible for success. Every day that you wake up to go out into your sales territory, to put yourself in the absolute best position possible via your mindset and your behaviors to achieve success. So what do we do with the team that we're going to share with all of you as part of the Summer Sales Success Series? We focus on each person's story, and I want you to really take the time today to think about your story. Think about your reality in sales, and we're going to talk about that. The second thing is we implemented a program called Selling in Color, which is the second part of the Sales Success Summer Series. And the third program was an implementation of the Kaizen way of sales excellence. I'm going to break down what each of these are, but first let me talk to you about some of the results that were generated as a result of focusing on these 3 methods. So we went from 21 out of 22 in the nation the first year, to the following year, 4 people left the organization because they didn't want to align their thoughts and behaviors with the idea of being successful that we had talked about in terms of adjusting our thoughts and behaviors. Hired 4 new people, and the team finished number 2 out of 21 in the nation. That's a significant turnaround. And then 4 of 9 people earned Leadership Council, which is top 20%. So we went from 0 people earning Leadership Council, top 20%, to 4 out of 9 people. That's a significant turnaround, and we won 3 of 5 promoted product awards. However, remember that our idea of excellence was to be the number 1 team in the nation and to have every single person on the team achieve top 20% in sales. So we looked at the end of that year, what we had to stop doing, what we needed to continue to do to be successful, and what we had to start doing. And as a result, the second year we finished number 1 in the nation. 8 of 9 people earned Leadership Council top 20% and a trip to Cabo San Lucas, and 3 people were promoted. So that's the power of what I'm going to share with all of you today a little bit, and then really in detail as part of the Sales Success Summer Series. And if you want to watch my acceptance speech for Sales Manager of the Year, in which I talk about this process and the Kaizen Way philosophy, you can go to YouTube, click on Jamar Brown, Sales Manager of the Year, and watch the video. So once again, the Sales Success Summer Series is a 3-part series every Thursday from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. Pacific Time. What's Your Sales Story, July 31st, Selling in Color, August 7th, and then the Kaizen Way of Sales Excellence, August 14th. And once again, you'll receive a free copy of my book, What's Your Sales Story, in addition to a free 20-minute coaching session. So with that said, let's talk about the very first program in the series, which is What's Your Sales Story. And this program starts with my sales career years ago and the moment in which I failed, the moment in which I realized that what I thought I was going to be, what I thought I was going to accomplish as a sales professional didn't work, right? And so I found myself in front of my manager after 2 years in the field, ranked 93 out of 98, hadn't moved at all, was struggling miserably. And he told me, Jamar, I think you're burned out. I don't think you're cut out for sales. I don't think you should be in this organization because you don't have what it takes. And here's a piece of paper I want you to sign, which is a written warning, which states that if you don't improve your sales results soon, we're going to fire you. So here I was at 22, 23 years old, after going to Whittier College, having an internship at Allegheny Pharmaceuticals, getting a job as a sales professional, thinking I was going to be salesperson of the year, and I found myself at the bottom of the rankings about to get fired. And at that moment, and some of you may have experienced that, you have a decision to make because that little thing called the ego comes into play, and the ego says, Jamar, you know what? It's not your fault. I didn't like my manager. I didn't like the company. I didn't like the organization. I blamed everybody else but myself for my poor sales performance. But then, as I mentioned at the start of the call, the most difficult thing to do is to look in the mirror and say, it's my fault. what am I doing wrong? Before I blame the manager and the company or the products or the pricing and everything else, what do I need to do differently? And there were a number of things that I did differently as a result of that moment when I was at the bottom about to get fired, that literally took me from 93 out of 98 that year to #1 in the country the following year, a major turnaround. And so the What's Your Sales Story program is all about what was that process. And the reason why I didn't call the book The 10 Habits of Sales is because when I looked at my experience as a sales professional, my transition, when I looked at all the people I met over the years that were successful at sales, I realized everybody is different. Different shapes, sizes, colors, personalities, different stories. And most programs want to teach everybody the exact same thing. This is how you do with a sale. This is how you prospect. This is how you ask questions. This is how you close. What they fail to uncover and help people understand is there are individuals behind those techniques that have different challenges, struggles, ego things may be getting in the way. So how do you break beyond the technique and get to the individual sales professional? And that is what the What's Your Sales Story is all about. And that's why in the book, I wrote out my entire experience going from, thinking I was God's gift to sales early on in my sales career to nearly getting fired for poor sales performance, and then ultimately becoming Salesperson of the Year. And I tell every single story, every struggle, because as we all know, as salespeople, we present a certain front to people that we talk to. And usually it's everything is great, oh, how are you, everything's fine, we're wonderful. But then you go home and you're, either by yourself in your apartment or your house, or you're with your spouse or significant other, and you break down and you really express what's really going on. Your fears, your concerns, your doubts, your insecurities, and all those things. And I knew that there wasn't a program out there, or a book out there that I ever experienced which got to the heart of the matter, which got to what's really going on behind the scenes in a salesperson's life. And that is really the most important thing to understand. What is really going on behind the scenes? And so the program, What's Your Sales Story, tells the entire story. And at the end of each chapter in the book, it has exercises for you, the reader, to uncover your own story, to talk about what's going on in your own sales experience. So that is the overview of the program. A couple of things that are going to be talked about during the program, which is Thursday, July 31st, from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. Pacific time. I'm going to talk about my story. I'm also going to address how do we conquer the ego? How do we take those two extremes of the ego, which is on one hand, when we're not doing well, it's somebody else's fault. How do we conquer that? How do we take ownership and understand that there's power in taking ownership and power in taking full accountability for our current sales results? On the other end, when we are successful and we think that we've arrived and we have that tendency to sort of think, well, I don't have to do anything different. I can coast now, I've made it, I'm God's gift to sales. And we've seen a number of people that have been at the top and all of a sudden start to fall. How do we present ourselves when falling? How do we stay constantly at the top of our sales game? How do we have perennial performance as a sales professional? We're also going to talk about the idea of the how versus the why. I'm going to explain some things about the selling process and how that should work and how we can generate significant sales revenue. We're also going to look at the why. Why do you sell? Who's important in your life? And if you look at the cover of my book, there's a picture of my daughter. You might say, why is there a picture of a young child on the cover of a sales book? Because that's the why. When you look at your customers, why are you selling? And that's oftentimes forgotten when we're out there just trying to close deals, and when the company is putting pressure on us to sell more with less resources, we tend to try to get as much as we can from every sales experience. We try to close as much as we can, but we forget about why we're doing it and the significance of why we're in sales in the first place. Another point, we're also going to talk about presenting versus selling. And in the book, I talk about numerous stories, but one story is how someone can be a great presenter. You know your information inside and out. You're an expert, you're a star in terms of presenting your product, but you're not selling anything. And that has happened to me in sales. I was a great presenter. People loved me coming to the offices, and I knew all my products. I had all the slick sales sheets and the promo materials, and I could talk a good game, but they weren't buying anything. So we're going to talk about how do we move from presenting to actually selling. We're also going to talk about this concept of people buy the experience and not the product. People buy the experience and not the product. And there's a very funny thing I saw on Instagram the other day, and it said that some people are like clouds. When they leave, everyone's happy. And I could tell you, I've seen many experiences in my own sales experience, but also managing dozens and dozens of salespeople where they walk into an environment and people scatter like roaches when the lights come on, right? So the experience with that person is not good. People don't have a positive connection with certain sales professionals. And you can change that. And this program, What's Your Sales Story, is going to help you to understand how do we change that. One last thing I want to address before I move on to explaining the second part of the series, and that is that this idea of selling to purpose and not product. And so often we sell to product, our features and our benefits, and we're taught that our products are the best. We're taught that our resources are the absolute best. And we get indoctrinated into this philosophy. But honestly, nowadays, there's so much parity between competing products. If you're in the medical field like I was and a product is approved by the FDA, the FDA is basically saying that the products are comparable. And so it's much more difficult to differentiate products nowadays. So what is really important as part of this differentiation? Not so much the product, it's how do you differentiate yourself as a salesperson? What makes you different? What makes you unique? What are your unique features and benefits? And how can you connect with customers by selling to purpose and not to product? For example, let's say you're in the financial service industry, or you're in real estate, right? And you have different financial service packages, and you're in real estate and you try to sell homes, or you say you're in the medical field and you try to sell your products. But one thing I realized, which is in the book, which is I really encourage you to read it, is I was so busy selling my products that I forgot to understand who was the end user of my products. And it gets pretty serious when you really think about that, especially for me in the medical field, because I was selling a product for glaucoma. And obviously glaucoma is a disease where you don't feel anything. And just imagine your vision going from this to a pinhole over time. And imagine, let's say you're a grandmother and you have grandkids and you're older and you have other medical conditions and you just enjoy seeing your grandkids, you enjoy having them come over. But let's say you're going blind, which is what some people are experiencing. But you have other conditions and you have other financial responsibilities, and so you might get your heart medications or your blood pressure medications, but you don't really focus on this glaucoma because you don't realize that you're going blind because you don't feel anything. And I met a patient that was going blind, and I had a conversation with her. It's in the book. And this patient really taught me what I was really selling. I wasn't selling a glaucoma medication. I was selling the ability for that grandma to see her grandkids a little while longer, to have her sight a little bit longer. That's power. And so as part of the What's Your Sales Story program next week, we're going to dive into what are you selling? Because when you sell to purpose, you'll be amazed at what can happen and the reaction you'll get from the people that you're selling to. So, and that is exactly how I went from last place in the nation to number one in the country, based on selling on purpose and a lot of these things. So we're going to dive into each of those areas in a lot of detail next week, but that is a basic overview of the What's Your Sales Story program. Now the next program is Thursday, August 7th from 11 a.m. to 12 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. And this program is called Selling in Color. I mentioned one of the things I did with the sales team that was struggling at the bottom was I taught them this process of selling in color. And it's really how to unlock the code of your customers' personality profiles. And this goes a lot deeper than just, let's say the Myers-Briggs assessment that we've all taken or the other thousands of programs out there, in that it doesn't just focus on the customer's personality type. We focus on what is your personality type. We look at what happens in certain scenarios where there's stress or no stress, because people act differently. Customers act differently. We act differently when we're under stress-filled situations and we're not under stressful situations. And if you can understand how the customer is reacting to you based on his or her personality type, and how you're reacting based on your own personality type, you'll be able to connect the two and have much better, much more effective communication. So we're going to discuss a number of things around sales and around communication issues with sales, because really sales is all about how do you communicate, whether it be verbal, nonverbal, or written, right? And so we're going to dive into issues can show up when you look at what is communicated. What do we actually tell our customers? How something is communicated, the tone, the pitch of our voice, and that type of thing, how it's communicated. How the communication is interpreted, because as we all know, you can say the exact same thing to a person at 2 different times of the day and get a completely different reaction. You can say the exact same thing to the same individual at a different time of the day based on what they're experiencing. You'll get a completely different reaction. I'm sure you could think about your experience in business, but maybe in your home life as well with your spouse, right? But we won't go there today. The personality of the communicator. We all have different personalities. And I remember years ago, part of the sales approach was, let's teach everyone to be the same. Let's have this robotic approach to sales. Everyone says the same thing. Everyone does the same thing. But then when I looked at the most successful salespeople that I've worked with over the number of years, they were all different personalities, different approaches to sales, different styles. And so you ask yourself, if the top salespeople are unique, why are we trying to get everyone to do, be, and act the same? It just doesn't make sense. And that's why I began this journey of really trying to help people uncover your own sales story, your own process, not to try to get you to be something that you're not, but to maximize who you are, maximize your personality, maximize your gifts, maximize your talents as a sales professional, and break away from, let me just be this, canned alligator smile sales professional that walks into the offices, okay? We're also going to look at the situations surrounding the communication. How do we go into a situation and identify what's going on in that environment, and then to connect with our customers in a way that welcomes you into their business as opposed to pushes you out because they see you as a nuisance or an annoyance or a problem. We want to have them see you as a partner in their business. And the best way to do that is to have you understand their personality type, their personality profile, their likes, their dislikes, how do they make decisions, but also to understand that when you walk into a room, people are getting an impression about you as well. Your personality and your approach to the process is going to affect the situation just as much as the customer's personality. So we're going to look at all that. Really, there's 4 aspects of the Selling in Color program, or 4 different colorized personality styles we're going to dive into. There's a blue individual, which is basically let's do it right. And you may have some customers who are very by the book. Then there's individuals that are let's do it now. You may have some customers that are potential customers that are type A personalities that just want to get it done. Let me give you a brief tidbit about this red personality, because that is a big part of my personality. And for example, let's say you put together a proposal and you want to know if somebody is a red individual or not. Let's say red versus blue, for example. If you give somebody a proposal, like me, for example, and I immediately look at the back page, which is where the pricing is, that's a red personality profile, because that individual in general looks at this is how much it costs. Then they try to justify if what you're saying is worth what you're asking me to pay. Whereas somebody that's a blue individual, when they get a proposal, they'll look at every single page of the proposal because they're very analytical. And the way that you interact with those individuals, whether they be blue or red, will affect the sale in a significant way. So we're going to talk about that. Another personality type is a green personality type, and that's someone that says, let's do it in a caring way. They're individuals that really like the personal relationship with you as a professional. They want to know that you care about them, about their business, more so than you trying to sell them something. And these are individuals that, can be easily turned away if they see you as coming off as insincere or trying to get over on them. So it's something to think about. And the last type is someone that says, let's do it together. Let's do it in a way. And these are individuals that are gregarious, they're fun-loving. They when you walk into the office, They'll bring you in and sit down with you, and they'll give you time, they'll give you energy. That doesn't mean they're going to give you the sale because there's a specific way of how do we interact with yellow individuals, because oftentimes these are people that will keep you waiting. You send them a proposal, you call them, oh, everything's great, checks in the mail, but you never get it. And how do we go from having a yellow individual push us off or give us lip service to actually giving us business and developing a strong partnership? And so we're going to dive into that. So that's the second part of the Sales Success series, which is August 7th from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And once again, log into studiocastpros.com to sign in for the program. So the last part of the program is the Kaizen way of sales excellence. And this is August 14th from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. Pacific Time. And the whole idea of this program is that sales has changed a lot over the past number of years. It has changed significantly. But there's one thing that hasn't changed, and that is the significance of making an impact when you have that 3 feet of space when you're in front of the customer. And so how do we create impact when we are in front of the customers? And there's two aspects of the Kaizen way of sales excellence. One is the philosophy around sales, and the second part is the actual sales process. So let's dive into it. The first thing we're going to talk about during this program is defining your why. We talked about your purpose. We talked about how do we identify the purpose of our products versus just the benefits of our products. We're going to dive into that a lot during the program. The second thing we're going to do is discuss how to eliminate wasteful thoughts and behaviors. And this is significant because we're going to discuss how do we accomplish more by actually doing less. How do we accomplish more by actually doing less? And the third phase of the program is continuous improvement, and that is how do we put together a daily plan for improvement so that we ask ourselves, am I better today than I was yesterday? And if you have a philosophy around your sales approach, it'll make the actual technical aspects of selling much easier to do because you have a philosophy behind it. So, and this is a sales process we're going to go through, and you're going to see some terms in here that are totally different and unique to what you've ever experienced before. And so let's start with the first one, and that is, pre-call planning. We know what that is, but there are some aspects of pre-call planning that you may not have thought about. So we're going to talk about that because just like running a marathon, the more that you prepare, the more successful you're going to be. So how do we prepare ourselves mentally and as well as our activities to help us be successful? The second thing is, normally they call it introduction. I call it impression management. Sales is all about the impression that you create. If you want to read a really good book on sales, I would ask you to look at a book called The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Marketing, because sales and marketing kind of go hand in hand, and people get an impression of you as a salesperson every time they interact with you. So how do we manage our impression as a sales professional? The next thing is called listening to the story. Instead of trying to sell our benefits and our features, let's uncover the customer story. People nowadays talk in stories. That's why you have Facebook and all these social media things. People are telling stories about their lives, and sales is the exact same way. So how do we uncover, listen to the person's story? The next area is how do we relate to their story? How do we connect with them? Because if you can connect with someone, they're more than likely to work with you long term. Then look at agreement as to what the story means, to fully understand what they're saying and how your features and benefits and products really connect with them. And then opening. Closing is dead. When people say I've closed the business, I say, well, you ever want to close something? You should open relationships. You should start something. Whenever you get a sale, it shouldn't be the end of it. It should be the beginning of it. So we're going to talk about how do we take this concept of opening into the sales process. And finally, this post-call analysis. How do we review our sales success and our sales process in order to help us get better every single day, to help us get one step closer to what we're trying to achieve and trying to accomplish? So once again, just to summarize, I gave an overview of the entire Sales Success Summer Series. It's a 3-part program every Thursday from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. $39 for each session, which is a small investment for what you're going to receive. The first program is What's Your Sales Story, July 31st, and that is how to use the power of your story to generate record-breaking sales results. The second one is Selling in Color, August 7th, how to achieve top sales results by focusing on personality types. And the third program in the series is August 14th, which is a proven method and process for generating top-level sales results on a consistent basis and to be a perennially successful salesperson. And once again, each participant as part of the program will receive a free copy of my book, What's Your Sales Story, as well as a free 20-minute coaching session. So I want to thank all of you for being on this live studio cast today. There were some questions that came in, and what I will do is I will follow up with each individual that sent in those questions on an individual basis and answer those questions. But I really want to thank you for being part of the series. And once again, if you want to reach out to me live, please call 949-371-9077. You email us at info@thekaizenway.com. But I look forward to having you attend the three-part series, the sales success summer series, which is going to kick off next Thursday with What's Your Sales Story. So please log in, and I'll send you all invites. Once again, thank you very much, and I hope that you got a lot out of today's studio cast, which is the Sales Success Summer Series introductory program. Thank you very much.